Right, okay, let's watch something depressing, shall we?
There isn't an election tomorrow, and it's only one poll. But even so, are we on the cusp of a massive change in our politics? Sky News can now reveal the latest polling projection from YouGov. And here it is. It puts Reform UK on course to be the next government, and Nigel Farage on course to be the next Prime Minister. Reform UK, the largest party in a hung parliament, almost impossible to stop, going into number 10 with the results that you're just about to see. Right, first I want to take you back to last July's general election.
I mean, if I pause and reflect on it for a second, it is impressive. I mean, I have to take my hat off to Farage in this regard. It is very, very impressive. I mean, the man basically was able to use social media to convince the British public that there is a Muslim rapist on every street corner, and if you can only vote him into power, he will deport them all and save us from the Islamic menace, which is basically what he's pitching.
To see just how much things have changed in a matter of months. You can barely see any light blue, that's Reform UK's colour. Labour, well, they're really dominant. Tories still very visible in their dark blue. Now, I'm going to walk over here so you can see just how it's changed, and here it is.
I'm going to guess pretty much all of England, London, no, a fair chunk of Wales, very little of Scotland, if I had to guess.
Look at this. So much light.
Close.
Light blue. It's really incredible. The North East, the East Midlands and Wales, all Reform UK dominated. Labour, driven back to a few heartlands. A third of their seats actually now would be in London. And the Tories, well, they're wiped out in the...
It is somewhat, I was going to say ironic. It's not ironic at all. It makes absolute sense. Centres of the country where you have a lot of people from different backgrounds meeting, working together, mixing, aren't as frightened by the message of UKIP. UKIP? That's a bit of a thing. Reform. Well, it is UKIP, but Reform. They're not as frightened by the message, by what Reform keep trying to push. Because let's be very clear, what Reform has basically said over and over and over again is, like I said before, is that there is an invasion taking place. There are military-aged men going into the country, going after your kids, going after the women, going after the children, and he's the only one who can stop it. What's really disturbing to me is that they recently announced that let's just press play.
Southwest, and not even much dark blue in their southeastern heartlands. And so, this is what the House of Commons would look like. And
whoa, the Conservatives wiped out. Pretty much. This is the thing I find interesting, is people on the left, I won't say far left because that isn't fair, but people on the more to the left in the UK, there's always a sense that they'd all go to the Greens, but they didn't. They still stick to Labour. It's impressive to me just how much Labour supporters... I may as well just come out and say it. I mean, I mean, parts of the country I grew up, parts of Yorkshire, that they've never, ever, ever liked the Muslim population. They've never particularly got on well together. They really, really haven't. I mean, I remember as a kid, people sort of, the things people would say, it was really disturbing.
The party with the most seats, Nigel Farage's Reform, up to 311 seats. That's up 306. Incredible result for them. 144 seats for Keir Starmer's Labour Party. That would mean them losing 2/3 of their seats. As for Kemi Badenoch's Tories,
I'm pretty sure that as far as immigration is concerned, like most people, by a massive majority, like 95%, 98%, go in with visas. And when the visas expire, they typically leave. Or, you know, they'll go onto a different visa, kind of like what I did here in Canada, where, you know, I come in on work permits. I moved around for a few different companies, different work permits, before I eventually was able to get permanent residency. That was kind of the path I took. Completely legal. You're allowed to do it. It's all, you know, work hard, get rewarded. That's basically the idea. That's what most immigrants who go to the UK are doing. But Nigel's, again, he's managed to convince so many people that, like, no, this horde, this army of invaders are coming across the channel and entering our country, and he's basically mixed it now to the point where I think I was saying before, like people who've lived in the country for decades on basically on permanent residency status are now being told, potentially under a reform administration, I guess you could say, that they'll have their permanent residency revoked and they'll be kicked out of the country if they're on a pension. So if you've lived there for decades, you've paid into the system, you've earned your state pension, you're allowed to live there permanently. They'll basically go, nope, you're out, be gone, we don't want you here. Kicking out law-abiding people who are elderly. And apparently a lot of the country are comfortable with this. And it's a bit like, what has actually happened? It's disturbing to me just how crazy things have gotten. It really, really is. I mean, like I said, I have to owe it to the far right. I really, really do. They have done a masterful job when it comes to messaging and how they've gotten it out there. But then again, they own so much of the media network, the media ecosystem. I mean, they're dominant online. Social media is practically owned by them these days. Facebook, well, Meta obviously, X, all this kind of stuff. They own it. And then in the UK, they own a lot of the legacy media as well. And so, people, the liberal left, well, liberals and the left, because they're two different things, they just don't stand a chance. And I think a large part of it is, and I hate to say this, the Labour Party are in power right now. They're in power. They should be able to get strong messages out, but Starmer just doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know how to get a message. The reason Farage is winning is because he has a message and he repeats it and he pushes it day after day after day after day, just out there all the time. The left and liberals are useless at this. It's almost like since Obama, and since the last Labour government before, which would have been, 10 years ago, they've just lost their ability to do it. They fracture themselves up, they break up into pieces, they squabble amongst themselves, and the populist right just kind of sweeps up and goes, oh, thanks very much, I'll take all these disillusioned voters, thanks. There's no message, there's no thing, there's no core to grasp around, and it's so depressing.
Down on 45 seats. That's pretty existential by the time they reach that low level. Again, down 2/3 of their seats. The Greens under the new leader, Zach Palensky, up 3. The Liberal Democrats under Ed Davey, they would be up 6 on 78. And the SNP, well, they would be on 37, up 28 seats.
Yeah, because they basically get the seats that Labour had. Because people are like, well, forget this, I'd rather go independent. And quite frankly, I wouldn't blame Scotland. I mean, Scotland nationalism is quite liberal. If I was ever to go back to the UK, if Reform ever got into power, I'd probably be like, look, we're moving to Scotland.
So there you go. Now, it's a hung parliament. So I want you to have a look at the formal winning line. That's here. It's 326 seats. And actually, Reform UK are almost there. They're just 15 seats.
Yeah, but look, they'll either get it or they'll get it from the Conservatives.
Short of that.
The SNP will push very, very aggressively for another referendum. Whether or not Farage gives it to them, I don't know. That's terrible. That is so depressing.
So what would happen? Now, they deny it at the moment, but quite frankly, the most likely outcome is that the Tories end up voting with Reform UK to put a Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage, in.
That's exactly it, of course.
Downing Street. There are alternatives. The Tories could abstain, but Reform UK actually would still then have the most votes to put Nigel Farage in number 10, even under that. It's only if all of the parties, including the Tories, apart from Reform UK, voted together. And
that'll never happen in a million years. That'll never happen in a million years. But I'm telling you now, like the Green Party would probably spend most of their time talking about Gaza and Palestine and Israel and complete indifference to UK politics, because that just seems to be where the left is right now. Which is, I mean, I understand it on some level, but there's also a point where it's like, yeah, when you have an actual fascist in the UK Parliament, it's time to focus more on domestic issues.
Also, you had the Northern Ireland parties that aren't in this poll taking them over the winning line, that you'll get somebody other than Nigel Farage in Downing Street. But can you really see the Tories doing that en masse? It's hard to see. Right, now look at who gets whacked under this poll. Here we've got the Labour faces. And look, Yvette Cooper, Wes Streeting, former leader Ed Miliband, deputy leadership contender Bridget Phillipson, former leadership contender Lisa Nandy, ex-deputy leader Angela Rayner, all.
These are basically all the big names from the last, 15, 20 years?
Gone under this polling projection. And lots of prominent Tories too. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, Robert Jenrick, there, Priti Patel. You've got Stuart Andrew, James Clever.
Why is Priti Patel going? She's been like hardcore populist the last few years. Although, mind you, I guess it's one of those weird things where it's like, well, we may as well replace you with the real thing then. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're going to play pretend, we may as well just get we may as well just get the full fat version through.
Over here, Rick Holden, who was one-time Tory party chairman, so many would be gone. Now, I want you to focus on a couple of things. Here is Reform's 311 seats, but where have they all come from? Well, look at this.
Northern England.
231 of them have come from Labour. That's where the seats are from for Reform UK under this. 71 from...
James O'Brien would hate me for saying this, but I am going to say it. It is the working class. It's working class voters that are doing it. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. It's like the white working classes are just... I've been primed over decades to be genuinely afraid of, in terms of like all the rhetoric around Islam and Muslims, around brown people, around immigrants. I've been primed to be terrified of this. They legitimately think the UK is going to be turned into some sort of Islamic country in their lifetime, and they're terrified. They are fed through their phones a never-ending drip of this stuff.
The Tories, 5.
And now you've got Elon Musk basically upholding... God, what's his name? Tommy Robinson, upholding Tommy Robinson. Think of that. He holds him up. He says he's like a modern day Nelson Mandela.
Hold on to, and the Liberal Democrats supply too. Now, I want to return to the map. This is the picture that we've been giving you.
A man who puts on X videos of brown people with captions saying, "Another invader causing trouble." You know, it's crazy now that this is the language we're using. These aren't people, these aren't... Hey, look, maybe someone is committing a crime. I don't know. Maybe someone is. But it's the language. You know, it's not a person, it's an invader. And it's all the psychological baggage that brings. That this is a threat in the country that must be removed, that must be culled.
Across the whole of Great Britain. But let's zoom in on Scotland. Let's see that now. Now, of course, these are Westminster seats, but still, the SNP up to 37 seats. You can see that there. Labour wants the...
Well, they've lost Southern Scotland.
Party of Gordon Brown down on 9. Just one Conservative. Now, when you look at this picture, it doesn't suggest that Labour wins next year's Scottish Parliament election. Now, let's look at Wales. Come over here. Reform UK, well, they really do well in Wales. You can see all the light blue. They're on 23 seats. Plaid on...
I would love to know how many refugees have been put into Wales. I mean, there is a genuine disconnect here. Like, again, I'll say it again. I have to give it to Nigel Farage. The populist right, helped for obviously by Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg at this point, have done an exceptional job hammering home day after day after day this message. Just relentlessly pushing it. And that's how you get people to vote for you. You have to have a message, and you just have to push it again and again and again and be relentless in doing it. If you can convince people through their screens that, there's someone walking around your neighborhood who's eyeing up your daughter you know. And if you let us have charge, we'll get rid of them. We'll make sure you're safe. Trust us. People will vote for it.
6 and Labour down on 3. Again, it's a different parliament, but it looks as if Labour could be on course to lose next May's Senate election for the first time as well. If this poll reflects the next election, this suggests we are heading for a very different type of politics than we're used to. The established parties will now try and stop all of this from coming true.